Subway has teamed up with Live Nation to bring you great food and great music for a great value. Right now, buy a Subway $5 footlong and get a Live Nation concert ticket for $5 to participating Live Nation shows like Nickelback, The Fray, and Crew Fest 2. Ticket price does not include fees. See store for details. Subway. Eat fresh. Eat fresh. The B.S. Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The B.S. Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the B.S. Report. Very rarely do the guests come over to the mansion to do a podcast, but in this case, the master of the roast, one of the great comedians of modern times, Mr. Jeff Ross. Welcome to the B.S. Report.
Thank you, pal.
You're not on the Subway Fresh Take hotline because you're here.
I'm right here.
You don't need to be on a hotline.
Thomas Jefferson was bar mitzvahed in this house.
Yeah, it's an older house.
It's beautiful, very beautiful.
Thank you.
You're a lucky man and a talented guy.
Thank
you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you. No, you're supposed to butter me up at the end of the podcast, not in the beginning.
That's how I
do
do
it. That's the Jeff Ross thing. Yeah, you do the 6 minutes of meanness, followed by, but Joan.
Where would I be without you? You're the one who called me the Michael Jordan of roasting.
It's a fair phrase. Let's talk about that first, because you just did the Joan Rivers roast.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that's probably the best possible subject for you, Joan Rivers. That could go in the most directions. Plastic surgery, old, the daughter. There's a lot to work with.
The jewelry.
Yeah.
It was tricky, though. I never roasted a dead person before. She took it well. I felt like, honestly, and I never really felt like this before with a roast, that she's been making fun of people for 40 years or so. So I felt like I was roasting her vicariously for everybody she's ever slammed.
Right. And she had said some mean things over the years, so.
And she continues to.
Yeah, so the what's that saying? The roosters came home to roost?
The roasters came home to roast?
Yeah.
You know what? And to her credit, like, a lot of comedians, they get older and they sort of do like a act that belongs on the History Channel.
Right.
She stays relevant. Like, she went up at the end and schooled everybody killed. It was a great roast.
Yeah.
But she schooled everybody at the end. I mean, she really did an amazing.
She went one by one and just killed everybody?
It was like a machine gun. She just went after every single person. New material, completely relevant, current. Like Michael Jackson, Octomom, like she had it all in there. And then she finishes it all. I don't want to give too much away, but an American flag drops behind her like 4 stories high, and she goes into a incredible performance piece about patriotism and how the country needs Joan Rivers more than ever. And
really?
It ends with confetti. People are going to be blown away by her performance. She should get an Emmy nomination for this.
I thought roast might be on the way out, but it seems like they've now made there's been a resurgence. I thought the Chevy Chase roast, I thought that was it. I mean, you didn't go to that one, but it was sad. It was like just these people I'd never heard of, and Chevy just had this look on his face, like, what's happened to my career, and it seemed like that was it.
Well, you make a good point. Like, there's roasts that are poorly produced, and there's roasts that are produced well. Joel Gowan and Comedy Central, they do a great job of elevating this to.
You're plugging people this early?
No, but it means a lot to me because there was a Cheech and Chong roast on another network that was awful.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned the Chevy Chase roast.
Don't forget the Shaq All-Star Celebrity roasts.
Well, that was fun.
Well, they were fun. Where does that go in the poorly produced or the well-produced?
That goes in the, that's tricky.
Yeah, how about uniquely produced?
That's good, because I did have some certain parameters when they called me for that. I said I want to be the only white guy in the dais.
Well, that was the night that I fell in love with you.
Oh.
As a man crush. Oh. Because, yes, you were the only white guy there. You came right up. You killed it right away. You did the, what'd you say? Like, this isn't a roast, it's a barbecue.
It was great having.
It was great. Shaq loved it. I mean, he could not have been a greater sport. He was fantastic.
He was very cool about it. After the show, he took me out to play craps, and I don't really know how to play craps. I'm more of a poker or a blackjack guy when I'm in a casino. So Shaq, and you know the way he throws dice, like he's just basically reaching over the table and dropping them on the other side. His arms are so long. And I didn't know about craps, so I just said, this guy's a winner in life.
Yeah.
I just told the pit boss, the dealer, I want to follow Shaq. And this is a benefit we did for Shaq's children's charity, the roast. So afterwards, I went out and made $1,000 just following Shaq on the craps table.
Wow. By the way, that's not a great strategy all the time, because like if you had followed Michael Jordan or Charles Barkley,
I
think you would have lost. There are two great things that happened in that roast. Your thing was great. And then I think that was the same one as the Doug Williams, Jamie Foxx evisceration.
Yeah.
Which Doug Williams is just coming back from like 6 years later.
Doug Williams, there was a very, very remarkable performance. There was one other thing that got cut out of that show.
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't know about was, you know who Moose Johnson is, right?
They showed a little of him, but I know the story, but tell it.
Moose Johnson, Jamie did a similar thing. People can YouTube this about Doug Williams, and Jamie goes on as his conscience.
Well, Doug Williams went up, and he was a little nervous, and he started taking shots at people, and for some reason Jamie just went after him.
Right.
And just killed him.
Jamie, as a good roast master should, felt a certain responsibility to keep the show moving.
And to end this guy's career.
I guess so. It really separates the men from the boys. One of the appeals of roasting is that it is sort of competitive. It's like a comedy all-star game, if you will. I mean, you have a bunch of really great players, all concentrating on the same subject.
Yep.
So it gets competitive because you have to look for different angles.
Well, you should explain. You get a list of like, here's all the people. Here's who'll be in the dais. Who's here? Who's in the audience?
Right.
And so you make a Microsoft Word doc sheet with the subject headings. You got Shaq, and you just start writing Shaq jokes and so on down the line. But go ahead.
Well, the best ones are where you can get a couple people in one.
Right.
I call those
multiple drive-by shooting.
I call those twofers.
Nice.
And it was like one of those sort of like moments in time where you start to work your partnerships. Like Jamie Foxx and I were good friends. We'd helped each other with certain other projects and other roasts. So I do a joke, and a joke that could possibly get an ooh from the audience got an applause break because Jamie's on the side of the dais kicking the punchlines, like giving me all this extra, like, I don't know what, it's not a cheerleader, it's something else. It's like a hype man or something.
He's like Black McMahon.
Ed Black Man. he was great, and
well, tell the Moose Johnson part, though.
So Moose Johnson goes up. I can't remember. I think this was kind of early in the show. It might have even been before the Doug Williams thing happened, so it was even ballsier, Yeah. Moose Johnson goes up, and he's dressed like he's, the congressman from the great state of whatever. I mean,
this was the Emmitt Smith roast.
Yeah.
We should mention that. Shaq wasn't the subject. It was Emmitt Smith.
Shaq was the producer.
Yes.
The host, essentially.
Yeah.
The co-host with Jamie Foxx.
Right.
And we're roasting Emmitt Smith. This was before Dancing with the Stars. This is Emmitt Smith doing his commercials with Alf. That was like that was like Emmitt Smith's big like area to goof on. There wasn't a lot there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Moose Johnson goes on with a huge notebook. I mean, you just see that he has 20 pages of crap. And that by page 3, you realize this is like his audition for a sportscasting job. This is not a roast of Emmitt Smith.
It's the concept of the roast has been improperly explained to him. He thought it was like
well
a tribute.
Put.
Yes.
He really did not know what he was getting into.
Yeah.
Even though there was Monique and Jamie Foxx and me and the Torrey brothers and all these funny comedians, Moose Johnson goes up and he's taking it very, very seriously.
Yeah.
He's doing an impassioned speech about sports, about sportsmanlike conduct, about Emmitt Smith and his amazing career and accomplishments, and we're getting bored.
It was like
by
a funeral.
Page 9.
It was a eulogy.
It was a eulogy for, right. So by page 9 of his 40-page discourse, Jamie Foxx starts, whispering into his little lapel mic funny Moose Johnson jokes. Just basically interrupting him, like effing with him. Not anything real dirty or mean, but just interrupting him. And let's face it, these guys are not used to getting interrupted.
They're used to punching people in the face that do so.
Or they're used to having 50 mics in front of them and saying nothing, after a game.
Right.
Whatever. So here's Moose Johnson, a blossoming player turned sportscaster, whatever, not used to getting goofed on, not taking it well.
No.
And he gets to his speech. He doesn't end early, the way Doug Williams did later, smartly. He keeps going through all 40 pages of this bound notebook that's laid out like something a candidate would have, in big type. And it's just like he walks off, and Jamie Foxx goes back to the podium. And just as he's about to say, "Give a hand for Moose Johnson," a stool comes flying at Jamie Foxx.
From Moose Johnson?
Yeah. Moose Johnson takes the stool and just starts, he just hurls it at Jamie Foxx, missing him by inches.
Wow.
I think a lesson was learned. You got to leave the roasting to the professionals.
I think it's funny that he's now a football announcer, a lead color guy I think he's like the number 3 guy for Fox, maybe?
Really?
And has no sense of humor. You'd think sense of humor would be like a little bit part of it. Because you came up later, and I think you've made a joke like, you said something like, "I'd go longer, but Moose Johnson did all my and they cut to him, and he looked like homicidal.
Well, by now he's mad at me too, because, we're all in on it. We're all laughing, and he's just not getting it. And, luckily he didn't kill Jamie Foxx.
You were at the famous post 9/11 roast too.
I produced that
Hugh
one.
Hefner.
I produced that one.
That's probably the all-time memorable roast, I would have to say.
Interesting.
I did that. I'm going to put that number 1 because, what was it, like 2.5 weeks after 9/11?
Yeah, it was about that.
A little tense. Nobody knows how far they can go.
The interesting thing was that we had to decide the week of 9/11. 9/11 was a Tuesday.
Yeah.
On Friday, essentially. No, maybe it was on the Monday.
Yeah.
We had to decide whether to go ahead with the truck rentals and the venue, and there were deposits that had to be.
It was in New York, right?
Protected. It was in New York. So I had this other responsibility of convincing the comedians, the producers, Comedy Central, the Friars Club, and Hef and his posse. They get on a private plane and fly to New York and put tuxedos on.
Yeah.
And crack jokes when, quite frankly, 2 miles away, it's still smoldering.
Yeah.
At ground zero.
And nobody was in a good mood on the Friday after 9/11. Nobody was in a congenial mood. I remember going out on that Saturday and just one of the most somber going out experiences I've ever had. Just people at a bar, like all kind of just sad and not knowing what to do, getting drunk.
In New York, you still had to run around with your T-shirt over your nose. You couldn't really go out.
Were you living there then?
Yeah.
Where were you living?
Greenwich Village, about a mile north of the towers. And
there's no way you were awake.
Ralphie May screaming into my answering machine, "Ross, wake up! Where are you? What are you doing?" And I think I'm dreaming it. I hear sirens whizzing by my window.
Yeah.
And
for those who don't know, Jeff Ross likes to sleep late.
Well, you're a comedian. This is
you're in the lifestyle.
And I was supposed to fly to L.A. that day. Ralphie knew that. I had just head written. I was the head writer for the MTV Video Music Awards 2 nights before.
Right.
Jamie Foxx hosted. And they all knew that I was flying out that day.
Yeah.
On the same airline a few hours later.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
wow.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
And what kept you alive probably was that you would never have gotten up that early for a flight, right?
You're probably right.
You wouldn't get up at 8 o'clock it'd be like get up at 6 o'clock.
And
that's freaky. I never knew that story.
Well, what else kept me alive was the fact that I was in New York and not flying out of Boston.
Oh. That's true. I didn't even think of that. Well, why would you have been in Boston then?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's true. You lived in New York.
Yeah, well, it was, who knows? It was very strange, and Ralphie woke me up. I turned on the news, and instantly I went into crisis mode.
Yeah.
I kind of had a hunch that people would be evacuating Lower Manhattan, so I ran to the deli and the cash machine, and I got food and cash. And lo and behold, I showed up back at my house 20 minutes later, and there was Dave Chappelle, his wife, and new baby with ashes all over them.
Jesus.
Evacuating the Soho Grand downtown, the hotel. So within hours, I had a couple other comedians and friends, and I had a shelter essentially. It was a very strange time. And by the end of the week, I'd written a letter to Hef and the Friars and everybody, Comedy Central, saying, it was before it was cliche. It was like the terrorists win if we don't go on with the show.
Right.
And here's why, because Hef is this great proponent of the First Amendment and free speech. He's the reason the terrorists hate us, and we got to do this. This will be great. Instead of an after party, we'll give that money to Twin Towers Fund.
Yeah.
Figured it all out right away with the help of Jean-Pierre Trabeau, the executive director of the Friars. We really had we felt compelled to make this happen.
So what was it, like about 17 days after, something
like that? It was
like the last
9/11.
weekend of...
Yeah, it was like the last weekend of September or something.
And it's going swimmingly until Gilbert Gottfried.
No, well, it wasn't swimmingly necessarily. It was it was tricky.
Was solid. It was
solid.
Yeah. It was like nobody crossed any lines.
See. Jimmy Kimmel was the MC.
Right.
He set the tone. He got everybody laughing. Yeah. Which was really tough. Let's face it, these things aren't done with a warm-up comedian, and, it's like you have to come out and set the mood, which in a post-9/11 environment no one's done that yet. The late-night shows aren't even back yet.
Right.
So Jimmy is essentially the man show guy coming out and getting it going, which no easy task is like moving an iceberg, and everyone's laughing in his opening. He brings out Rob Schneider, who's doing fine. He got a few jokes here and there. And then about 6 jokes into his act, he starts sliding.
Oh, no.
It's not really working anymore. And now here I am, the producer, in my ridiculous talks with a Southern Kentucky Fried Comedian, as Jimmy called me, bow tie that Buddy Hackett gave me for added inspiration. And I run up, and Schneider's starting to get a little flop sweat, and I put my arm around him right at the podium, and I said, Rob, hasn't there been enough bombing in this city?
Oh, no.
Which was essentially the first 9/11 joke of the evening. And it was like, boom, big release of tension. You could just feel the audience sort of loosen up. By now, they've had their first drink, and I felt like the combination, the 1, 2, 3 of Jimmy, Rob, and me kind of set the night off. Everybody went up and did fine. You had Cedric the Entertainer, you had Sarah Silverman, you had, Drew Carey and a few other people. All did great. And then there's the
making jokes about Hugh getting erections and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, my God. It was really, really fun.
I'd convinced he died about 5 years ago, and they just move him around like Bernie.
Oh, Hef will never let go. He's like the Fidel Castro of boobies.
Yeah.
They'll have to pry that breast out of his cold, dead fingers.
So tell the Gottfried part.
So, Gilbert Gottfried goes on, and this guy doesn't have a filter like normal people.
Yeah.
Gilbert is...
He's insane.
He's different.
Yeah.
And he goes up to the podium, and help me along here. I remember, he did...
I thought he said, sorry, I'm late, and that was, his first... That was
he did a couple
opener.
Jokes that were fine, and then out of nowhere, he goes, sorry, I'm late. My flight is non-direct. It has a stop at the Empire State Building. So the last tall building in New York.
Right.
Now he's making a joke about crashing his plane into.
And it just causes a riot.
The roasters are laughing because we don't know what else to do. It's Gilbert.
Yeah.
It's like your little brother causing a problem at Thanksgiving. You just go with it. But the audience is a little bit like, whoa. So they're like half and half laughing, and then someone yells, too soon! And that's what set Gilbert off. Now Gilbert stops. He's holding onto the podium, and he just stops talking, but he doesn't stop moving. Now he's like, I don't know what he's like. He thinks it's a time machine and he can rewind 30 seconds, or he's going through some sort of odd transformation where, like a werewolf or something, he's turning into someone else.
Yeah.
And he's empowered by the fact that he's pissed people off.
That this energy, he's feeding this weird energy. He's feeding from it.
He really does. And, by the way, I chronicle this in detail
in
my
The Aristocrat.
book. Oh. No, in my book. Because I went through all my letters and files and found out exactly what was said and what all the jokes were. And, I don't have the brain to remember every part of it.
Chapter?
Yeah.
Cool.
The Roast Must Go On, it's called.
We're going to get to it.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying. And he goes into this joke that I'd never heard, which apparently is an old joke called The Aristocrats.
Right.
This is years before the documentary came out. And it's a joke that's the filthiest joke ever.
Yeah.
It's about it's essentially about a family who does a variety show act, and
The most offensive act possible.
yeah, the father walks into an talent agent. He says, "I got a great act. Well, what do you guys do?" And he goes into how a story about bestiality and incest and having sex in every conceivable way you can imagine, including
Bodily
animals
functions.
and donkeys.
Yeah.
And it's dirtier, and every time you think it's the dirtiest thing you've ever had, he goes to another level. It's like deeper, deeper, deeper into hell.
Yeah.
Until at the end, it's unbelievably disgusting, and there's body fluids all over the floor, and blood and guts and spit and vomit, and everything you could imagine could happen in an awful, 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 awful show.
Right.
And finally the talent agent goes, "What do you guys, sounds interesting, what do you guys call yourselves?" And Gilbert, like, flourishes his arms, and he says, "The Aristocrats." The punchline's not funny, but it's like everything that built up to that for 10 minutes. People are literally, there's a shot of Rob Schneider laying on the floor. He could no longer sit upright, right? You could see the tears crawling out of Jimmy Kimmel's eyes. Like,
Yeah.
he knows that this is like some sort of like euphoric breakthrough of comedy.
Yeah.
And, Gilbert goes off like some sort of triumphant hero.
Now, why can't the uncut, they have these roasts, they're heavily edited. I've seen the uncut footage a bunch of times, most recently.
Oh, wait, and then Ice-T took us all out to a strip club because we didn't have an after party.
Oh, that's how it ended?
Yeah.
It's kind of cliche, though. No, I'm
Hey,
kidding.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Sometimes they're cliches for a reason.
The unedited roasts are frequently a lot funnier than the edited roasts, which bothers me about the Comedy Central, because they'll always cut out like one or two. I don't know, like I saw the unedited Joan Rivers thing, your friend that you sent.
Uh-huh.
There's a flow. You're getting a flow of 7 minutes. You're doing 7 minutes, boom, you're hitting all your marks, and you know what? It's a set.
Yeah.
But when Comedy Central edits it into like almost like a best of, I don't quite like it.
It becomes a highlights type of a thing. And, my thing is like, when somebody does bad, they fight hard to get that taken out.
Oh.
So that's part of it. But my thing with the roast is I like when they have a narrative.
Yeah.
When somebody does bad, like we were talking about, Doug Williams and Moose Johnson, like when that stuff is in there, like when you're present in the live taping, it's like a movie. It has ups and downs.
Yeah.
And,
it's like a Robert Altman movie. It's a 3.5-hour movie.
well, sometimes someone goes long, sometimes goes short, sometimes you make reference to somebody who bombed.
What's
another one of my best jokes ever was at that Hef roast.
Yeah.
Tommy Davidson. I'll give you an example of one of my best moments that I'll never see television.
Right.
And it wasn't because it was dirty, it was because Tommy Davidson begged to have his set extracted from the broadcast. He didn't do well. He came out and he sang, he sang Sammy Davis Jr., Candyman, but, he did another word instead of candy. To Hugh Hefner.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
That kind of sounds same syllables as candy.
Yes.
And it's like, you're the bam man, and it's like, it didn't go over great. And he's doing his Sammy Davis Jr. impression and whatever. It's a little silly.
Yeah.
And, of course, I'm next. So I just go up to the mic, and my opening joke was, wow, Tommy Davidson, holy mackerel. If Sammy Davis Jr. were alive to see that, he'd poke his other eye out. Which, of course...
I kind of knew you were going there, but I still enjoyed it.
So it was these things, yes, they do get heavily edited. Sometimes it helps my performance, sometimes it hurts. I'm not going to lie.
When we were working together, because we wrote for Kimmel for the AMAs a couple of years,
right.
You were kind of down on the roast a little bit. You felt like you had taken it as far as you could go. You wanted to try other things. Now it seems like you've re-embraced them.
I did get a bit of a pep talk about that.
Who was the pep talk from?
Dave Chappelle, interestingly enough.
Wow.
Who gives advice, you listen, because this guy's walked away from more money than most of us will ever make in our lives. So
that means you should listen to him?
Yeah, because he's not generated by money necessarily. He's the love of the game.
Right. Okay.
This is a guy who's been doing comedy since he's 14 years old.
Yeah.
Doesn't need them. Isn't about the money for him. It's always been about the creative aspects. And we've been friends for 20 years, and I listen to him when he talks. And it was like a late night chit chat. We were in Las Vegas doing something, and I was kind of saying that, like, oh, I don't know, man. I just made the documentary about my trip to Iraq, and I was kind of enjoying branching out a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't forget, like, being the roast master's fun and all that, but there were times where the old guard gave me crap about putting them on TV. There were other times where, you don't want to get pigeonholed, and then, producing them was a headache at that point.
You were the bridge between the old guard and the new guard.
Which sometimes is fun and sometimes can be very painful. You
Right.
know, when Milton Berle's calling you up going, why does it have to be on TV? It's supposed to be private. And you go, well, because we want to make it big. We want young people to know what this is. You can't get the whole world into the Friars Club, so you put it on TV so people start to understand the traditions of comedy.
And by the way, the roasts were televised in the 60s and 70s. It's not like they couldn't. I mean, there were some.
They did the
Those Dean Martin roast
Yeah.
and some other stuff. So it's
Yeah,
not like
so you need to, right.
Yeah.
Well, the Friars roast we're talking about now.
Right. Different level of roast.
So I took the Friars roast to Comedy Central, and it was a painful transition, but made millions of dollars for a club that I love very much. I always did it as a Friar. I never did it as a producer for the,
How many people belong to... Hold on, I'm interrupting you for a second.
Yeah.
How many people belong to the Friars Club?
a couple thousand people in New York.
You pay membership dues?
Uh-huh.
And like you're in town, do you say, I'm going to go to my Friars Club and I'm going to eat dinner in the Friars Club lounge? Like, what do you get out of it?
You go for lunch. You could go for a steam. They have a gym that's great.
They have a spa?
They have I don't know if I call it a spa. It's a medicine ball and stuff like that. It's a nice gym. Really nice gym. The food's great. They have all sorts of fun events. There's always a golf tournament or a comedy show or a book signing party.
All guys?
No. It's been mixed since the mid-'80s.
Interesting.
Joan Rivers was the first woman ever to have lunch there.
Oh, so it was like an old school country club where like they only allowed the white males, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And that eventually...
And then they branched out.
I think Gloria Allred had something to do with breaking that down.
All right. Continue your story.
What was it about?
It was about Dave Chappelle.
So Chappelle says, every comedian needs a lane. You know him. He lights up his cigarette. He gets real thoughtful. And he's like, every comedian needs a lane, he called it. Not a hook, a lane.
I like it.
And he said, it's really hard to find one that can take you all the way to the top. He's like, roasting is something that can grow and grow and grow. He said, so follow your lane. He said, you haven't been doing it long enough to run away from it. Embrace it. Capitalize on it. He didn't talk about it in money terms. He talked about it in creative terms.
Yeah.
Try it every way you can. And it made sense to me. It's like, oh, you got to be known for something. You got to sell in before you sell out.
So when I said all those things to you in 2005, it didn't resonate the same
Not
way?
the same way.
Yeah. I guess because Dave Chappelle's funnier and more successful than I am.
Well, maybe it was a matter of timing. Like, I was ready to hear it. And I was starting to
I think my
understand it
tact
better.
was more like, what are you doing? It's a great niche. What do you want to give this up for?
Yeah.
You're known as the best at this. This is a lucrative niche.
Yeah.
Now you've embraced it a little bit.
I started to like it again. I think part of it had to do with the resurgence. When Jimmy hosted that Pam Anderson roast, he wanted his friends around him.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was a big boost to it too. Like, these roasts are a lot more fun. Great roasts are the extensions of great friendships. When you have your homies around, you feel empowered by that. You feel confident by that.
Right.
And you say more outlandish things. If I do a roast and I don't know anybody, chances are I'm out the back door,
right.
Afterwards. But when you have your friends around you, you're really willing to hit hard.
It seems like you are from the last generation of comics, basically. Like, are there under 30 comics? Like, do they have the same kind of kinship that the guys from your generation have? You know what I mean?
It's interesting.
You know all the guys, whether it's Sarah or Patton Oswalt, you've known all these guys forever. And you've been at the same comedy stores and all that stuff. Now it's like, I'm not sure who's the next group. It almost seems like it's more digital, and it's more like the Sandberg, like the Lonely Island guys. Like it's gone in a different direction. I'm not sure how many people are doing stand-up anymore. Like, what's the impetus if you're 22 to be like, I want to be a stand-up. This sounds great. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I see it that way, Bill. I see it as...
How do you see it?
I see it as... I once asked Buddy Hackett, I said, who was the funniest guy of your generation?
Yeah.
maybe this will help you understand it from my perspective. I said, who's the funniest guy of your time? And he said, he thought about it for a second. It wasn't like it was something he got asked a lot. And he said, well, everybody has a moment. If you're funny, everybody has a time where they're considered the funniest person. Either an appearance or a movie or something that they do. Everybody goes, that guy.
Yeah.
And if you're funny and you stick around long enough, you'll eventually have that moment. So you talk about, different younger comedians. They don't know where they're going necessarily, but they're just doing their thing.
Yeah.
And there'll be a guy who's the next Richard Pryor. He might not come around for 20 years, but there'll be somebody who kind of does that.
So you think that could still happen?
I do.
Because I just think there's so many different ways now to get your comedy out. Back in like the 70s or whatever, it's like if you were funny, what were you going to do? You did stand-up. It's not like you could say, I'm going to make weird videos on YouTube and I'll get my creative outlet out that way. Or I'll have a blog. Or I'll start a Twitter
all those
account.
People are going to eventually get seduced by live audiences. At the end of the day, thus, even if you talk about the digital thing, talk about, Dane Cook, somebody who made it big on the internet, it all fed his live concert performing because at the end of the day, for the audience, that's where it becomes a revival, an experience, a moment where you're like in the same room and nothing can really top that.
So that's something that you have to feed all the time.
I feel like I do, yeah.
What's the longest break that you take from doing stand-up usually?
Well, I'll always go around.
Have you gone taking a year off?
No, I've never
6
taken
months?
more than a few weeks.
More than a few weeks?
Yeah.
So it's almost like golf. You have to keep hitting golf balls.
It's like hitting the gym. You have to do it to stay good at it.
There
was a couple years where this was sort of around the same time I was talking about like the Chappelle thing was like I wasn't going on the road at all. Yeah. I was staying around doing writing jobs and stuff like that around L.A. and, producing different things, but not going on the road as a comic. And I would just go by the Laugh Factory and just putz around, whatever. Mm-hmm. You smoke a doob, you go on stage, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And I was killing. I'd go on after the best comics in town and still do well, completely unprepared for 20 minutes. And that's when about the time I got a similar lecture from Rock. I said, Rock, let me go open for you in Jersey, and we were in the dressing room afterwards, and he was like, Ross, why don't you go on the road? What are you doing? How many people can kill like that? Not that many. Just work it out for a year, see what happens.
Rock Hudson?
Chris Rock.
No, I was kidding.
And, I don't even think he realized what he was saying or that I was really absorbing it fully, but, his out of the corner of his mouth, quick 1 minute pep talk, he was about to go on, I'm just coming off. It's one of those, we're just backstage for a second.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I went to him for advice, but it was just like something he tossed off. But what he tosses off, I grab wholeheartedly and examined, and I go, if he even thinks that for a second, I really should try to, this is the greatest comic working today, in my opinion. So
I agree.
I took that, and I said, wow, I wonder what would happen if I committed for a year, went on the road, and just saw how that feels. And I did that.
What'd you think of Comedian, the Jerry Seinfeld doc?
I liked it. I don't think I loved it.
I felt the same way. I liked it.
It was painful because it was like looking in the mirror at 5 a.m. at yourself after you've been drinking. It's just, it was too close to home. I love Jerry Seinfeld's comedy, but I don't necessarily want to see the deconstruction of it.
Yeah.
Because as a fan, it's like you don't want to know how the tricks are. And I don't want other people to know how the tricks are done.
Right. That makes sense.
I respect it as a well put together movie.
So you think Rock is still number one right now, 2009, July? Yeah. August. We're in August.
I don't think you can really top what that guy does on stage.
Who else is in the discussion?
He's like a panther, stalking the stage, and everything he says is relevant.
My only problem with him and with any comedian who gets too big is that when you reach a certain financial level and a certain fame level, I think it's tough. And I'm 100% convinced this is what did Eddie Murphy in. Huh. You become too detached from the real world and everyday life because everywhere you go, you're Chris Rock.
Right.
You go buy freaking Gatorade at the store, 5 people are staring at you. You're not soaking in like, oh, that's funny when the guy behind the counter does that. You're more worried about this guy staring at me. Is that guy going to come up to me? I think that can be a bad thing.
I see it more with musicians than comedians, because comedians are sort of wired where they're always going to feel awkward and outsiders. You'll still see Chris Rock walking through a mall, taking it all in. He might have a hat and sunglasses on now, but he's still sort of that guy where you always feel like the skinny kid in 6th grade, looking at all the popular kids.
So who else?
But I see like Sting. I remember Sting like becoming worldwide, and suddenly his songs were about something else.
Yeah.
I
think that happened to you too.
Me?
No, you too. You too all of a sudden was singing about, Martin Luther King Jr. and all these weird, they're from Ireland. What do they know about Martin Luther King Jr.? It's
my friend Eddie Gorodetsky. He has this thing about Springsteen where he says, I'm a Jersey boy, so it hurt when I heard it, but it resonated in that there might be some truth into it, and that Bruce used to write songs about people he knew, and now he writes songs about people he read about.
Oh.
And, I don't think it's good. I think comedians need to stay in tune with, what makes them funny to begin with. It's really tricky. They usually branch out into movies, but if you're somebody like Chris Rock, George Carlin, Jerry Seinfeld, who stay on the road, I think these guys are careful to sort of,
dabble in real life.
Yeah. You don't hear Jerry Seinfeld doing jokes about the limo ride or you hear him doing jokes about everyday things, and that's what makes it relevant.
Here's the thing about charter planes. Yeah, I guess that wouldn't fly.
Yeah, and that's why they could still draw, because they're relatable.
Yeah.
Whereas, other people,
So, Chris Rock, Sarah still has her fastball.
Absolutely.
Patton?
I just saw Patton at a K-Rock benefit not too long ago, and he was at Adam Carolla's house for a benefit, and, unbelievable comedian. The things that he talks about will never go away. He's always going to talk about popular culture, food, music, being a nerd.
Yeah. I feel like his career should have been bigger. Maybe it'll happen. He's got this
bigger.
Movie
He's got
coming
a big movie coming out.
I know.
He's Ratatouille, for crying out loud.
But I'm saying he's one of the best comedians of this decade.
Yeah,
I don't know if the average person would throw him in to the top.
I think with Patton, as a longtime fan, I think it's a marathon for him, and he understands that.
Yeah.
He's not the young cute kid who's going to get a deal.
Right.
He's got a life.
That really did hurt a whole generation of comics, I feel like.
What's that?
When they were handing out those development deals, and you were good on stage for 6 months and you got a CBS pilot.
It killed me.
It
really messed me up.
What happened?
I made money, when I was just starting out. Did Letterman.
Yeah.
Popped into a couple of healthy, lucrative deals to develop sitcoms, but didn't know how to act, was barely a good comedian, didn't understand writing.
You hadn't even honed your act yet.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, I was headlining, but I wasn't like a killer.
Yeah.
I had a good, set, but it wasn't like I was at the level of somebody who was doing a big sitcom like Ray Romano or Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
It's like no one, there's never been anyone that young who's had their own sitcom. There's nobody in their 20s who gets a sitcom.
It's not a good idea.
There's nothing to talk about.
Even somebody like Seinfeld, growing up watching the Lettermans, I knew Seinfeld for 8 years before he got that NBC show. And when he got the NBC show, I was in college and excited and telling my friends, we have to watch the show. I felt like he was my friend because he'd been on Letterman 50 times, and he had so much time to hone what he was. But if you watch those early Letterman tapes, he's a little skittish. He's laughing at his own stuff. Like he wasn't even nearly what he became. If somebody had given him a deal in 1984, obviously Seinfeld wouldn't have been Seinfeld.
I think the real comedians, you talk about Patton Oswalt, Sarah Silverman, people who are lifers, who are long-haul comedians, they're not ready for a sitcom until they're been doing it 20 years, and that's all about, or a movie deals, the people we're talking about. It takes that long to really have a voice, because you don't have to just be funny. Think about Ray Romano, Bernie Mac, Drew Carey, Brett Butler, Roseanne. All the people who had big sitcoms were in it 15 years before they had those successful shows. They did failed shows, they did bad shows,
Right.
but they didn't have those kind of careers until they were doing it much, much longer. You know, for most women, you think that's too old to make it, but for a comedian, that's when you make it.
Yeah, everybody forgets, like Jamie Foxx, not only did stand-up, but he had that show they did like 200 episodes of that show.
Yeah.
Before he became a movie star.
Yeah, he had a Jamie Foxx
for a
sitcom
while.
and in Living Color before that.
Yeah, true.
You know, the guy doesn't, you know, you're not going to win, he's in his 40s till he really is substantial and respected, and it takes that long.
So you think a comedian's prime, it's actually kind of like a writer's prime, I feel like, because I feel like a writer is like, I'm going to say like 38 to 46.
Look at Bernie
Something like
Mac,
that.
you know, may he rest in peace.
Yes.
He didn't become popular until he was well into his 40s.
Yeah.
He was just like, not only because he could he carry the show then, but he could promote it. That's the other key. You can't just, you know, I remember seeing a lot of friends when they were starting out like, oh, I got an audition for Saturday Night Live, and they throw themselves into it if they get a shot like that on a show, or they get booked on a sitcom and they lose weight and they take acting lessons and they do everything to prepare. But if you can't give the show 100%, you can only give it 80% because you have to use the other 20% to sell the show. You got to go on Jay Leno and Conan and kill. And that's a full-time job too.
Right.
So you really have to be a fully realized comedian before you get those shots.
Well, I'm going to throw this at you. Maybe stand-up comedy comes back because now they're not handing out those network deals like that anymore.
You got to do it the hard way.
CBS only did 4 new pilots this year.
You got to
Got to go out on the road and make it happen.
my manager always compares it to running for president.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, you have to build your following the hard way. Morning radio. I was in Denver all weekend. I did 6 interviews so that I could sell out. You can't just show up and, you know, I'm not honing my act so that I can showcase it in L.A. I'm honing my act so I could come back to Denver in 8 months for more money.
Right.
You're doing it for the right reasons. You're trying to really kill as opposed to just showcase.
So what are you going to do? So this book comes out. What's the name of your book again?
I only roast the ones I love.
That's a good one.
Busting balls without burning bridges.
Excellent. September 15th.
Yep.
Are you going to do what kind of tour?
I got all kinds of great press lined up. Very, very excited about that.
Going to do stand-up as part of the tour?
Yeah,
or no?
I'm going to do some dates in some big cities where I feel like I can make an impact. I'll go to Chicago, New York, Seattle, a couple other places.
Do you have like a city that is like you've kind of adopted as your home away from home that you just kill every time you go there?
I don't know why, but I really find myself loving the gig in Chicago.
Really? Chicago's like one of those... You got the history of comedy. It's a little more comedically maybe forward than some other cities.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, man, but I just feel like a certain swagger on stage there, and
Yeah.
I'm selling out there, and I'll do some stuff there, and obviously I'll get all the, lots of great friends and who have shows who will book me and help me promote
You have a
it.
few of those people.
Yeah. It gets tricky because there's, some shows won't follow other
Competing
shows.
yeah.
And that's fine because a good thing about a book is not like a movie opening. I can promote the book forever, essentially, for a
Right.
year. You know that.
Well, you have 6 blurbs on the back, and I'm not one of them, and quite frankly, that hurts.
Yeah, well, I tried
Here's
to
what
keep
I
it
lost
to
out
really
on.
good friends.
Chris Rock, Chelsea Handler,
She
Is
sells
she
a
your
lot of
friend?
books. Yeah, well, we're from Jersey. It's a Jersey thing.
Kimmel, Bob Saget, he's your friend. John Mayer, you're not friends with.
Yes, I am.
You're friends with John Mayer?
Of course.
And Sarah Silverman and Rachel Ray. Yeah, I guess so. I'm fine with that. John Mayer, you're friends with. Since when?
A couple years.
Yeah?
He hangs around the Comedy Cellar, so.
He had a show on VH1. They gave him like a half-hour show that he did. It was kind of like a John Mayer on tour, kind of doing it out of his trailer type thing.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was really good. It was like 4 years ago. I've said this before. I feel like he has more talent than what the talent that we've seen. Like I wouldn't be surprised if what he's doing 10 years from now is different than what he's doing now. Does that make sense?
I think that does. I think that his potential is limitless. It's like one of those guys where he's so good looking, it's hard for certain people to see past that. That he's such a good guitar player, people see only that.
Right.
And he's such a good songwriter that people get stuck on that. And then if you read like he wrote this amazing article for the Huffington Post about Don Rickles and insult comedy that was like, something a Yale professor would write about comedy. It's just like
interesting guy.
At that point, one of the most fun things we ever did together, he invited me to his 30th birthday party, which was a double party. His dad turned to 80 on the same day.
Wow.
And it was at the Rainbow Room at Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
Very fancy party, beautiful, elegant, and it was cool. His dad gets to see him sort of have this life.
Yeah.
And then Conan O'Brien showed up. He has a studio downstairs at the time, and came up, roasted John Mayer, which was hilarious. He's like, all the great blues guitarists come out of Connecticut. It was all jokes like that. And then, unbeknownst to anybody, mind-blowing, Tony Bennett walks in.
Oh.
And they hand him a microphone. There's an orchestra there in tuxedos. It's the Rainbow Room.
Yeah.
And Tony Bennett takes the microphone from the maitre d'. He puts it down on a stool, tells the band to take a break, and he sings Fly Me to the Moon a cappella.
Wow.
But no microphone and no band. And it was just like, I don't even know.
Sounds like a moment.
It was like an angel singing this song. Like you heard it with your ears with no amplification because he knew the room so well. And he's an older guy, so you hear all the life and all the experience behind the lyrics. It was really cool, and I thank John for letting me hear that.
I think guys my age, a little bit younger, there's that John Mayer backlash, and it comes down to two things, which men are instinctively trained not to like two types of people. There's more, but two in specific. Guitarists who can go sensitive and they make weird faces. Guys are out on those guys immediately. And then if somebody is just bagging a disproportionate amount of good-looking women, we're also out on that. So he's got two strikes against him constantly, but somehow survives. I don't feel like people are 100% against John Mayer, whereas if it was really anybody else, they would be, which I think is a tribute to him.
I think he sells it with his sense of humor. Like he's self-deprecating all the time, and that's how he gets away with it. Yeah.
Although I still don't understand how he dated Jessica Simpson. I have the same problem with Tony Romo.
Have you gotten a good look at her body?
Is she that overwhelming in person?
She's pretty hot, man.
Because after seeing that show, I can't imagine like going out to dinner with her or something. Like if you had an IQ over 100.
Yeah, I don't think.
You don't think it matters?
I don't think it's her conversational. I mean, at a certain point,
you think that's her acumen?
We're talking about a guy in his 20s.
Yeah.
Dating the hottest woman in the world.
Dating a blonde with natural
I don't know, man.
Attributes.
Not for me to say, but.
So the book, 256 pages, you wrote it yourself?
Yeah.
No help?
A lot of great
ghostwriter?
pictures. A lot of great pictures.
You didn't have Cousin Sal ghostwriting it or anything?
Cousin Sal wrote the chapter about Cousin Sal. No. I did let him look at it, though.
You did?
I didn't want to surprise. Well, I didn't give it to him. He stole it off Jimmy's desk.
Oh.
But I think it's important for everybody to be in on the joke. That's one of the messages of my episode with Cousin Sal.
And you're getting along with him again.
Very much so.
You guys had a falling out.
Well, we had a huge argument
a lot of people don't know this story, so I hate to dredge it back up, but
no, it's no problem.
Dancing with the Stars, Cousin Sal calls you day of, says, "Don't worry about it, you're safe." You assume that he had inside info because he works for an ABC show.
Right.
You got voted out. Freeze frame of your face, you're in disbelief. Sal was like never been happier about anything. You were like legitimately hurt because you felt like he betrayed your friendship.
Right.
And how did you resolve that?
Well, I was also injured.
That's right, you got hit in the eye.
I got hit in the eye on Dancing with the Stars. I had a scratched cornea dancing with an eye patch against doctor's orders.
Yeah.
I get the lowest score, since Master P refused to wear proper dance shoes. Heather Mills' leg flew off. She got a higher score than I did. Christopher Reeve did a wheelie, fell out of his chair. He got a higher score than I did. And I'm thinking the whole time that this is my, I'm going to make it. Despite the injury, I'm going to get the audience sympathy.
It's like a Rocky Balboa type thing.
And this is my second dance comeback. We had 2 dances. So I'm putting on my tuxedo, tying my ascot, It's Dancing with the Stars. It's totally ridiculous. But once you're in it, you've been training 5 weeks every day, all day, to learn these 2 routines. So I do the first routine. It goes bad because I'm hurt. Now it's a new day. My eye's starting to feel a little bit better.
Right.
The drugs that they gave me are starting to wear off. I'm getting my peripheral vision back. Doctor says you can dance tonight.
What you call peripheral?
Peripheral? I don't know the word. I don't have much of a vocabulary.
I like that. I hope you didn't try to spell that in your book.
They have people who take care of the spelling mistakes for me.
Yeah.
What is it?
I think it's peripheral.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all right.
And that's why you have a giant mansion, and I'm in Denver at the Comedy Works. And, Buddy Hackett used to say, turn your phone off an hour before the show. You got to concentrate. You owe it to your audience, blah, blah, blah. I leave my phone on because I have, my sister and my aunt and uncle and my cousins are all looking for me at the
They're all
trailer.
excited for you.
They're all there in town, rooting me on, Dancing with the Stars. 23 million people, largest premiere ever the night before. Here's day 2 of a 3-day premiere. And we go to air in 10 minutes. I get a text from Sal. You're safe. Don't tell anybody. Woohoo! I hit the ceiling, of my trailer. I dance over to my partner editor's trailer, knock on her door. Coach, we're safe. We're going to dance tonight. This is huge. This is the greatest comeback ever. Oh, my God. Yeah. This is it. We're going to be famous. This is crazy. I text Sal back. Are you sure? Yes. 3 letters. Capital. Y-E-S.
Well, hold on. I got to interview for a second. You've dealt with Cousin Sal now for 10, 11, 12 years at this point?
Yeah.
Practical joker extraordinaire. Lives to tell lies. So he just roped you in. You just somehow believe Cousin Sal, the one person you should never believe ever about anything.
Well, don't
you have to blame yourself a little bit. I don't want to use the he was asking for it defense. But
he really wrote me in. And he wrote a bit for me and my partner the week before to help us promote it on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Why not?
He was really in my corner.
Why not email Kimmel to follow up and make sure?
I had no time. I was being mic'd when I got the
Okay,
text.
gotcha. All right. So you trusted your 12 years of friendship with him that he wouldn't mess around with something this important.
Right.
Okay.
I figured we were friends, and he was putting that. He knew how hard I'd worked.
Right.
And he knew I was hurt.
But if you had taken that 3 seconds to think, nothing would make him happier than making you think that.
I said, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
And he said yes.
All right.
That was his chance to get out of it.
All right.
He knew
Good point.
He knew he would believe me. Otherwise, it's not funny. I mean, he knew I would buy it.
Right.
He wrote me in really, he was very much in my corner for weeks leading up to it, checking in with me and helped me promote it.
So you think this was a calculated multi-week ruse by him?
Of course.
Okay.
And I go out on the stage, and there's 13 couples. There's usually 12. They added 13th couple this year.
Yeah.
My season. And for 2 straight hours, we're all up on a stage, and Tom Bergeron announces who's safe, and then they get to do their second dance. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm doing the quick step. I have a tuxedo on. I'm doing Frank Sinatra. I get a kick out of you. I'm incorporating my karate moves. I have a bouquet of flowers. I kick over.
You got your bad eye. You're playing hurt.
Yeah. I mean, this is a really cool thing for me. To me, it's like people say, why you're even doing this? Back in the day, comedians could sing and dance. They were showmen. This was my way of paying homage.
It's a variety show era.
To the great roast masters who came before me.
Yep.
So it means a lot to me to do well and not embarrass myself.
Yeah.
So Tom Bergeron announces every couple. Warren Sapp, safe, dances. Brooke Burke, St. Cloris Lee, everybody gets to dance. It gets down to 2 couples, me and Kim Kardashian. She's very popular. And she's very nervous. I'm literally stretching my hamstrings, ready to dance, because I know I'm safe. I'm telling my partner's nervous. She doesn't believe Sal.
Yeah.
She'd met Sal. She doesn't believe it. I believe it.
I didn't know the story, but when it was down to you and Kardashian, I wasn't feeling good for your chances. Because you think of all the horny boys that are voting potentially.
Well, I figured I was safe.
Yeah.
I'm waving to my family.
Yeah.
Here we go. I'm telling editor, don't worry, we're dancing next.
Yeah. Commercial
break. We'll find out who gets eliminated and who gets to dance right after this.
Yeah.
Rob, the producer, walks over. Kim, Jeff, come over here. So he says, he says, okay, one of you is going to get to dance, and one of you is going to go over there to that mark and make a final speech to the country.
Right.
And I realized he's only looking at me.
Uh-oh.
And like a WTF goes into my head, like, what the heck is going on here? Why are you looking at me? And he gets all like, gets all weird.
Oh, boy.
He leaves. Tom Bergeron comes back from commercial, and they eliminate me. And it looked like I just watched a shark take off my foot. My face.
It was great.
I'm speechless.
Now, comedy,
so now I'm eliminated, and I don't have a closing speech.
Yeah.
So it's just like I have my pants down. I'm completely... Samantha Harris puts a mic in my face. She's the host. She says, how are you feeling right now? And I'm like, this is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Which, it was. And all I could think in my head is Sal, 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 Sal. It's like an old car alarm going off in my head.
You're just making the Seinfeld Newman face over and over again. Newman!
I take my family out to Cantor's Deli. I'm so sick to my head.
Yeah.
I go home. I shower off the makeup. I check my text messages. It's one from Sal saying, sorry, dude, I messed up. Totally sarcastic. 4 hours later, I have to be back at Dancing with the Stars at 5 a.m. to do a live hit with Good Morning America. So now I'm back at the scene of the crime, like in the middle of the night.
And plus, nobody hates getting up earlier as much as you. Yeah.
I go do Jimmy Kimmel that night because whoever gets voted off goes right to the Jimmy Kimmel show to be the special guest, where they burn your dance shoes.
And Sal was a little too pleased with himself.
I'm still wearing the ridiculous outfit. Sal walks in my dressing room. Dude, tough break. And I never came this close to raising my hands at him. I was so mad.
I'm glad you didn't because you would have probably lost.
I don't know about that.
Sal's got that weird wrestling background, though.
I'm a black belt in Taekwondo.
It would have been a good fight then.
And let's not go there.
Who's favored in that fight?
The times that he's come after me physically, and this is also my book. There's a picture of him putting me a headlock on the floor of the Man Show writer's room.
Yeah.
This is a guy who threw me in the pool at Adam Carolla's wedding. He wrote all my punchlines in spray paint on my Porsche once. Like, he's gotten me bad a few times.
Yes.
Have I ever gotten him back? No. It's beneath me.
You'll never get him back?
I feel like the chapter I write about him in my book is sort of my revenge.
He gets a whole chapter?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that. There's a Cousin Sal chapter.
There's a whole chapter.
That's exciting.
So we go weeks. Without talking.
You were mad. I gotta say, there's two people I never want to see a somber version of. It's you and Gus Johnson, the basketball announcer.
Interesting.
There's somber Gus Johnson or a somber Jeff Ross. I feel like we've all failed.
It took weeks for us to figure this out.
You were really, and in fact, why don't you share the name of the person who healed both of you?
Tom Cruise.
True story. You were there randomly. You were there the 1 week that Tom Cruise decided to go by Kimmel's house for football.
Tom Cruise had just appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live. They did a funny bit together, and Tom, I guess, somehow got himself invited over for football.
I think he invited himself over.
Yeah, that was what I don't know. So, Sal has since been on the radio saying I'd do it 100 times over. It was the best gag I ever had. He's rubbing it in. Yeah. His attempts at making up were lame, in my opinion, and
he did send you a gift. I thought that was nice. He sent you peanuts.
He sent me cigars.
Cigars, yeah.
And
that was nice.
Which I took as a nice gesture, but there was a note from cigars.com that said, note included. So there was no note. So I said, he's sending me a gift with no note. So I just emailed him.
You didn't feel like that was heartfelt?
Well, it said there should be a note, so I thought maybe he should know that it wasn't included. If he spent time writing something, he should know I didn't get it. So I wrote him, got the cigars. It says note included. And he wrote back, now you need a note?
Oh, boy.
So I was like, oh, he's being a jerk even when he's trying not to be a jerk.
Yeah.
And I was just like, so I broke one of the cigars in half, took a picture of it, emailed it to him and said, this is our friendship. I said, cigars.com, next time try apologies.com. Triumph sends me better cigars. So I'm keeping a sense of humor about it, but I'm upset.
But you're still smoldering.
And, you know, it's like they're saying, how could a guy who says such mean things, you know, not take a joke? And I said, I got the joke. I laughed about it when it happened. It's all the acting after.
Yeah.
All the, like, you know, when a friend's upset, you say, I'm sorry, don't be upset. We could all have a laugh about it. But he's enjoying rubbing it in. And
it was the victory tour.
Right. And
so Tom Cruise somehow brought you together. Victory tour. So Tom Cruise hears both sides of the story.
I hadn't been at Jimmy's in a long time. I went up once with John Stamos from Moral Support, and it just became where...
That's a great name drop. That might have been your top name drop.
Well, because I was like, you know, I missed everybody, you know?
Yeah.
You got Jimmy's Cooking. You got
I
all
was
the
there
guys.
the day you and Stamos came over, and yeah, it was a little tense.
It was a little tense, and they're dropping stuff that to me was not real evidence. They were saying, how could I say this mean thing about Tommy Lee at the Pam Anderson roast? And I said, I didn't actually say that. I said that at a poker game to try it out and didn't actually say it at the roast. Then they're like bringing up other stuff I did on another show, and I was like, that's not really what happened. Like I felt like I was getting ganged up with weak evidence. And
right.
I said, I'm not feeling this, and, you know, let's just agree to disagree, and I'm out of here.
And you left early.
Another month goes by, I'm on the road, and everywhere I go, I'm in New York, somebody from the audience yells, F Sal! You know. And I'm in Chicago, somebody stops me on the street and goes, that Cousin Sal is such an a-hole, blah, 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 blah. I'm at Disneyland with my nephews, and some ladies, like, you know, that's Sal, blah, 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 blah. People are really, like, suddenly interested in this, like, feud between me and Sal. And I see that me being quiet about it is backfiring on him. Like, people are starting to understand that maybe what he did wasn't so nice.
So you were almost, you
then
became
I hear
a
from a
sympathetic
couple of
figure.
relatives. Then I hear from a couple of relatives and close confidants of Sal. And
There's
I see
only
that
so many of those.
his story is unraveling. He's not getting the support.
Right.
I see Sal somewhere at the San Gennaro feast. I notice he's losing weight. I see his hair is thinning. His sister told me he was very stressed out.
Yeah.
And he wasn't dealing with this well. And I start to go, this is really affecting him too. And I start to feel a little bad about that, you know, but it's like, I tried. I went up there, you know, I don't see this. I don't see how we're going to fix this.
He lost weight because he stopped eating pizza and cheese, I think. But for the purpose of the story, I'll go with it.
He seemed like he was...
I will agree that he was affected. As a friend of both of you, I will say I don't think he values his friends very much so. And I don't think he liked that he had unresolved stuff with one of his friends. It did bug him.
And same goes for me. It was hurt. It was pained. You know,
you guys go a long way back. I mean, you're going way back.
We have a lot of affection for each other.
Yes.
And our fights always brought us closer together.
Yeah.
I would say.
You guys you're the Tom and Jerry of real life. And I don't know who was Tom and who was Jerry, but.
Five. So, I can't take it anymore. I just miss everybody else. I'm like, I'll ignore that, you know, lying little troll.
Yeah.
I'll go up there anyway, see what Jimmy's cooking, see what the guys are up to. And everybody was happy to see me. You know, just by showing up, I was showing that I was the bigger man.
Yeah.
Everybody clapped when I came in because I hadn't been there in a long time.
Yeah.
This is Sunday football at Jimmy's house. And, you know, everything's fine. Sal's avoiding me. He's fidgety. You know, the Cowboys are winning, so I know it's not that. I know it's me.
Yeah.
He's like hiding behind Frank. He's like a little kid.
Yeah.
Cowering, you know.
Wow.
And he's avoiding me. He won't even make eye contact with me.
I find that hard to believe, but go ahead.
I'm telling you.
I bet he was fidgety because he probably had action on every single late game.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Suddenly, completely no one could ever imagine this would happen. SUV pulls up, and I look to the right, and I see Tom Cruise is in the kitchen with his mom. They're holding cupcakes.
Unexpected.
And this is very strange.
Yes.
You've seen a lot of heavy hitters walk into Jimmy's kitchen, but this is crazy.
He's a top 5 heavy hitter, I think.
And before I know what's going on, Jimmy's Uncle Frank grabs me by the arm across the kitchen. He goes, Tom Cruise, do you know my favorite comedian, Jeff Ross? And Tom Cruise gives me his hand. He goes, I believe we spoke briefly at the Matt Lauer Friars Roast in New York. And I'm like, wow. Not only does this guy remember me, but I've
heard that about Cruise, that he can remember anybody he's ever even brushed by.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty neat. Because let's face it, I spoke to him for 5 seconds at that roast.
Yeah.
You know, he went up and killed roasting Matt Lauer.
He did?
Yeah, he was amazing. He was really amazing. One of the best first-time roasters I've ever seen.
Huh.
He came up completely surprised, everybody in the room, unannounced, unintroduced, walked up to the podium while people were still eating. Show hadn't started yet. And did a 10-minute evisceration of Matt Lauer that was drop-dead hilarious.
Is that on YouTube or anything?
No.
Huh.
No.
That's too bad.
Yeah. There's some clips and quotes online.
Yeah.
So Tom Cruise is in the kitchen now. And we have it's very cool. I go, yeah, you were really great that night, blah, blah, blah. Don't think much of it. They're sitting down, eating, and I go in the other room to watch football with some of the guys. Suddenly, Sal appears next to me, whispers in my ear, why don't we let Top Gun figure out who's right and who's wrong?
I like how he used the Top Gun.
And I think about it for a second. It's like the first thing Sal's really said to me in a long time.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, now, here's a guy, Tom Cruise, who has on-the-dais experience.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who understands the difference between making fun of somebody to their face and making fun of somebody behind their back the way Sal did to me.
And he's also a stage 5 Thetan.
What's that mean?
I don't know. Isn't that a Scientology term? Did I use that correctly?
I don't know.
Whatever.
And on top of that, he has played so many righteous lawyers.
Good point. Didn't think of that.
He has to understand right from wrong.
Right.
So I say, okay. Sal walks over to Sarah Silverman and explains the situation. Mm-hmm. Sarah's there. Sarah lets everybody have a little food, settle in. Tom Cruise relaxes a little bit. Sarah steps up on a coffee table in Jimmy Kimmel's living room and says, okay, it's time for the big sit-down between Sal and Jeff. And Tom Cruise is obviously momentarily confused.
Yeah.
Sarah says, and Tom, you'll be the ultimate decider on who's right and who's wrong and how to fix their friendship. And Tom Cruise is like, got a cupcake in his mouth, and he's eating Jimmy's chicken parmesan, and he's like, huh? What? It was like... And Sarah went on to explain the entire story that I've just told you.
Yes.
In great detail, and she kept it funny and light.
A tough one for her because she was dating Cousin Sal's best friend and is a longtime friend with you. She was kind of in the middle, I would say.
I think that made her, in essence, objective in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And Tom agreed. Why, I don't know, but I think he thought it would be fun, and I also thought that he thought that he could be useful. He'd be doing what the Jews call a mitzvah, a good deed.
Yep.
And we lay it out. Sal lays out his side, Jimmy helps him, and I lay out my side. I don't know if Sarah helped me. I guess Sarah helped me.
Yep.
And Tom Cruise asked a lot of thoughtful questions, and his mom said, at certain points, and I think the two of you are acting like little boys. She really laid into us.
Wow, Mrs. Maypo there.
She was great.
Mrs. Maypo
she was
there?
great. She was very cute and very, very sweet. And it took a good 45 minutes, I would say. And
it ended with like a Shawshank hug.
What's that mean?
Like you and like Red and Andy on the beach at the end of Shawshank.
No, it wasn't like
hug?
that.
Huh.
Sal was not. It was not huggy kissy. It was contentious. It got emotional. And my voice is cracking at certain points. You know, we're still in it. It's an open wound. And Sal's telling me I'm being a and I said, so what if I'm being a friends don't let friends be upset. You say I'm sorry and it's over.
Yeah.
That's all I care. You know, it's not like it's not like this is not fixable.
Yeah.
You're just being stubborn.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't like the way you treated me. It was on national television. You put a gag for your late night show above our friendship.
And it was a huge professional moment for you and you were blindsided.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of debate about all this stuff. And, you know, I talk about how much work Tom Cruise was fascinated by how much work I'd put into learning this second dance I didn't get to do.
Well, because he was the guy who spent 4 months learning how to juggle bottles and cocktail. I mean, nobody threw himself into roles like Tom Cruise.
So he's sympathetic.
Yeah.
And in the end, Sarah says, all right, Tom, what's your verdict? And Tom Cruise sat there for what felt like 10 minutes in complete silence, thinking.
Just like with the Tom Cruise, A Few Good Men, trying to decide how to handle Colonel Jessup face.
It had everything but the background music. It was really cool.
I can't believe I missed this.
And you see Sal like clenching up, and you see me nervous, twitching, and you know, Jimmy's just trying to Jimmy is enjoying every moment of this ridiculous powwow.
He thrives on uncomfortableness.
Eating it up.
As long as he's not involved. Then if he's involved, he hates it.
And finally, Tom Cruise looks at Sal and says, you've hurt your friend's feelings. I think you should apologize.
Wow. That's how it ended.
No. So Sal sits up. He looks at me and he goes, as I've said 1,000,000 times, I didn't mean to, and he just starts qualifying it and Tom Cruise cuts him off.
Wow.
No, Sal. No qualifiers. Just apologize. Sal tried again. He looked at me in the eyes and said, I'm sorry, pal. And that's when Tom Cruise, he was holding a football, because it's Sunday football. He grabs me and Sal on either side, and he has a shake over the football. And there'll be a picture of it in my book.
You know, if I didn't know that story was true, I wouldn't have believed it.
It's crazy. That's why we had to take a picture. So a couple weeks later, it's Christmas Eve. Jimmy invites me over for Christmas Eve dinner, and I brought Sal some salt and pepper shakers I'd found in New York. There are two guys hugging.
Huh.
And as legend has it, we finally smoked those cigars out over the Christmas sky.
I'm glad, because America could not handle the two of you guys not getting along.
Apparently, it was a huge problem. It was finally resolved.
We got to wrap this up.
That was fun.
Your book is called I Only Roast the Ones I Love. It comes out on September 15th. Now,
you can get it earlier.
Yeah, if you guys out there, if you like Jeff Ross, which I hope you do, pre-order the book. It comes out in like 6 weeks. Doesn't matter if you pre-order. It won't affect your New York Times bestseller list, because it all goes for that first week.
Mm-hmm.
Will help Jeff, help his book company get an idea for who might buy this thing.
That's nice.
And it'll be funny. You'll laugh. You'll get the Cousin Sal Tom Cruise story.
I
what
also
else? Anything else in there?
There's a lot of, I talk about saving Courtney Love's life at the Pam Anderson roast.
That's a good story. I know that
we roasted
story.
her into rehab.
Yeah.
I give away my secrets for writing roast jokes.
I was at that roast, and she was a 10 out of 10 on the train wreck scale.
Yeah.
She was they edited almost all of it out, but she was just not meant to even be in public anymore.
The joke that people use when they try to tell me that I'm the meanest person in comedy is when I said to Courtney Love, how is it possible that Courtney Love looks worse than Kurt Cobain? And you could see in her face that the brutal honesty was registering.
Oh.
And the next day she went and got help. And people constantly credit me with saving her life by roasting her into rehab. So Roasting Saves Lives is one of the chapters.
I like that.
I also give away my tips for toasting friends and family at parties and family functions. I give away some of my secrets for writing roast jokes. which I think comedy fans will get a big kick out of.
I like how you reinvented one of those jokes with, I don't want to give it away.
Which one?
I'm going to bleep it, but the initials are CB. You'll know it when you hear it if they use it. They'll keep that, right?
No, I think they're going to use that one.
Okay,
I think they're going to honestly keep my set pretty intact because... the
initials of the punchline involve a person with the name CB.
I don't mind putting the joke out there. People will still laugh because you'll have the reactions of the people on the...
All right, well, what are your most famous jokes? Actually, in my opinion, the most famous joke of this decade was the roast. What roast was it with B. Arthur?
I was roasting her friend Jerry Stiller.
Right. Joe Mead, you have to bleep this, but we're fine with the bleeps.
Okay.
And B. Arthur's on the dais. One of my all-time favorite funny people. I mean, this is a woman who can make anything hilarious.
She could sell either shock or laughter or all kinds of things.
And I figured I had to get her worked into my roast somehow.
Yeah.
And I'm following Sandra Bernhard, who normally can do really well at these roasts, but in this particular occasion, she decided to sing to Jerry Stiller. I think she sang, Magic Man or something ridiculous.
And just as uncomfortable as her King of Comedy scene.
She's essentially giving Jerry Stiller a lap dance while she's singing this sultry song. And he's wincing, and it's very uncomfortable, and she gets off, and they introduce me, and I say, Sandra Bernhard, holy I wouldn't you with B. Arthur's. The joke's fine. It was her reaction that made it a home run.
The B. Arthur reaction.
She leered at me
like,
I don't know. I mean, it stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
Enough where I felt like, oh my God, I've really made an impact here. And, people say it's, one of the great roast moments.
I would agree.
And then for years, I'm hearing about it everywhere I go.
Yes.
So then I'm thinking, wow, B. Arthur, she must be hearing about it too.
Yeah.
So I track her down. It's like 2 years later, 3 years later. I go to her one-man show, whatever.
One-woman show.
And I wait on a big, long line of fans to get a picture with her. And it gets to me, and I go, Miss Arthur, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at Jerry Stiller's roast, and halfway through that, she just looks at me and she goes, you nailed me, you prick.
Nice. So she has a sense of humor about it.
It was really cool. And she invited me back to her dressing room and
So you reinvented that joke during this joke by saying... I
said to Kathy Griffin, who was emceeing the Joan Rivers roast that's on this weekend, I said, Kathy Griffin, holy mackerel, I wouldn't you at Chastity Bono's nude... regular readers of the tabloids will know that Chastity Bono is now Chaz Bono.
That murdered me.
That was a good one.
I don't know if you should have gone with Chaz or Chastity. It's a tough call.
I just feel like... It was tricky. I did think about that.
Because Chastity, then you got the new, so that ties in Chaz is new. That wouldn't have worked as well. I think you made the right call.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff Ross.
So much fun.
August 9th. The Joan Rivers roast on Comedy Central. 10 o'clock? 9 o'clock?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. I saw the performance. It's great. And then the new book coming out on September 15th. Good luck with everything.
Thanks for getting the word out, Simmons. You're a good friend.
Thank you for coming on the B.S. Report. We will talk to you next week. That was Jeff Ross, not on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, in studio, but still. Until then.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
This concludes another installment of the B.S. Report. And with all the talk about sports, Bill Simmons neglected to mention this important just breaking news, which frankly cannot go unstated. This summer, Subway is teaming up with Live Nation to bring you great food and great music for a great value. Right now, buy a Subway $5 footlong and get a Live Nation concert ticket for just $5 to some of the hottest Live Nation shows like Nickelback, The Fray, and Crew Fest 2. Ticket price does not include fees. See the nearest Subway for details.